There are many reasons why entrepreneurs turn around and sell their company, while founders sell their companies, and why they sell to private equity. Some people sell because they need the financial exit for whatever reason in their lives, and they're trying to get some cash out of their business because it's time to retire. Some people sell because there are succession issues that they're trying to work through in the business. Some people bring in private equity because they need a strategic partner for the next step of their business, for going to do acquisitions, for example. So they're looking for somebody that can be a partner with them in their journey. So there are so many reasons out there why people sell their companies. So how do you get yourself ready? What should your company look like? The one thing you have to keep in mind is the best business to sell is the one you don't really have to sell, because it's in a great place. The numbers are great. The number one determinant of valuation from a private equity standpoint is the health of the business. The health of the business is going to be the biggest determinant of what kind of value you can get in the business. It's common sense. It's not rocket science. But the challenge for many founders, especially founders who've never sold businesses before, founders who've never sold to private equity before, is what does that mean? Ultimately, it means you can tell a very compelling story with your finances. You check certain boxes. Let's start with the rule of 40. You check the rule of 40. What's the rule of 40? The rule of 40 says if I add your annual revenue growth rate to your company's profit margins, it's at least 40% or more. So you're growing at 50% annually with a 20% margin. That's fantastic. You have a healthy company that the private equity group is going to be willing to negotiate with you on and give you premium price for your company. You're telling a story. It's about storytelling. And in telling that story, you're telling a story about where you've been, and then you're telling a story about where you're going to go. And in both cases, the numbers have to be able to support the story. And the numbers that support the story are going to be your margin, your gross margin. So if you're a SaaS business, for example, and you want to optimize for value, you want to have a business that's got gross margins in the 80s, 80% plus gross margins, because that shows a sign of a healthy business. So here are some of the things we've talked about so far. You want to meet the rule of 40. In the SaaS business, you want to be at 80% plus gross margins. You want to be profitable on the bottom line. You want a CAC to LTV ratio that's healthy. What's a healthy CAC to LTV ratio? If you don't know what CAC is, CAC means customer acquisition cost, and LTV means lifetime value. So you want a CAC to LTV ratio that's at least 3-to-1. In the world of private equity, the more the merrier. That's another difference you have to keep in mind. You know, when you talk to VCs and you have very high CAC to LTV ratio, they're like, pour more money into the business, grow faster, grow faster. Depending on which kind of private equity you sell to, once you're at 3-to-1, there is a camp among them that's going to be like, bring it down to the bottom line. And then there may be another camp that's like, pour more fuel on the fire. Now, what are you trying to optimize for? In any transaction, there are two things you're typically trying to optimize for, depending on what your plan is. It's a very personal decision, so context matters when it comes to exiting out of a business, especially to private equity. But the two primary things at the end of the day is the value of the business and the level of control you're going to have post-acquisition. It is very hard to optimize for both at the same time, especially within the context of selling to private equity. And the reason is because it is very common in the venture world to see companies get unicorn valuation and very high valuation and very high multiples on their revenue, or even high valuation without revenue, because most of the cash coming into that business is going to be going directly into the company. And then you and your VC partners are going to go on this journey to go create value together. So you get a lot of high valuations that may not match the reality of the value of the business at exit. In the world of private equity, many times the cash is coming to the founders. So think of it this way. When VCs invest in companies, many times the company creates new shares and the VCs become new owners in the companies. When private equity invests in companies, many times they are buying shares from the current owners of the business. So it is not in their best interest to give the companies crazy valuations when the founders are going to be walking away with the cash. And maybe a little bit of cash is going to go on the company's balance sheet, but for the most part, the founders are walking away with the cash. So there's a big risk element here. The value creation really needs to be able to match the valuation they're putting on the business. So those are some of the reasons why it is even harder to control or to optimize for both control and valuation when you're selling your business. If you want to optimize for value and control, you want a situation where it is pretty clear to the private equity partner that they have less work to do. The more work they feel like they have to do to create value, the less value they want to assign to your business, and the less control they want to give up in the business. But in general, selling to private equity, control is the harder one to get between valuation and control. So what you want is to make sure that you've spent the 12 to 18 months prior to an exit event creating the kind of business that maximizes value for you within the range of the market. If you want to be the high range of the market, all your financial stories have to be on the high end of the market because you're telling a story about where you've been and where you're trying to get to. The second thing you want to optimize for is control. Now, this is harder with private equity. And this is where you have to get your mental state right for a sale. Are you actually mentally ready to sell your company? Are you mentally ready to have a senior partner in the relationship, especially if you're going to be selling majority stake? Because what private equity wants is consistency. You're going to be transitioning from a founder's life of creativity and problem solving to this life of efficiency and consistency. The founders who transition the best into a private equity CEO are the ones that can find a way to give the private equity groups the consistency and efficiency they want, and to still give the company the spirit of a founder, that spirit of a builder versus a caretaker. Many times private equity guys are optimizing for caretaker CEOs that are going to keep the engines going, are going to keep things going. But typically that's not what a founder is looking for. So I see many founders really struggle to get the mental state right of moving from this state of builder, risk taker, go-getter to caretaker, efficiency, game manager, So that's the other thing you have to get yourself ready for mentally. Are you at that mental state if you're planning to stay on as CEO? Part of your mental shift is this new world where you have this group of people that would probably want some weekly update about your business. So how do you start building systems in the business that makes it easy for you as the founder and for you as somebody reporting to your financial partners what the state of the business is every week, what the state of the business is every month. Sometimes that's a mental shift for founders that they have to get used to, because usually they don't have to talk to somebody else about this. Or even if they have a board, the board is not quite in their business every week. So that's a mental shift. You also have one practice you need to start prior to your exit event that needs to continue post-exit. And that is this thinking around exits. As founders, we tend to not really think too much about exit. But as private equity, that's what they think about. They start this journey, typically 3 to 5 years, where they want to exit, and they want their money to have 3 to 5x. 3 to 5 years, and about 3 to 5x their money. That's typically what they're looking for. So now you have to have a habit of thinking about value creation on a path to exit. What does your business look like now? What would it look like at the time of exit with your private equity founders? And the more you can tell that story and paint that picture with the private equity group that's your partner, the more likely you're going to have fun in this job and be very successful. You have to learn how to manage the board around your risk-taking activities and your efficiency systems building activities with everybody's eye on the path to exit. So those are some of the mindset changes and operational changes you have to have in your business. And then finally, you have to be clear on the team of the future. The team that you have that gets you to your first exit as a founder, and then the team that you're going to take along your private equity journey to your exit with the private equity. You have to think about those things. The first part, in my coaching exercise, I help you walk through that. I help you make sure you have the kind of team that you need. You have to have a team to go execute on creating value together for your next exit with the private equity group. So the teams, the systems, the mindset, all those things are important prior to your first exit to a private equity, and then on your journey creating value with a private equity partner. When I was planning to exit to private equity, I had two things I was trying to accomplish. I had put a lot of money into the business. My wife and I still had debt. We had created this business that had significant value, but we had not de-risked personally. That was one. We wanted to de-risk personally. The second thing was I saw an industry where I was growing very fast in that was highly fragmented, and I wanted to execute on an acquisition strategy to consolidate and roll up some of my competitors and also grow into certain segments of the market. And I needed a private equity partner, in essence, to be my business development arm and to give us access to financial capital through non-traditional banks to go help us execute on that strategy. So what were some of the things we did? For the private equity group, that the key goal was around doing deals, I spoke to them every week about my top 10. So I had a top 10 list, and these were top 10 targets that we were working on together, and I was trying to make connections with, that I was going to try to meet at a trade show, and the things I knew about those. So we were together aligned on that. So that's an example of some of the things you now have to put into practice as a private equity CEO. Every week we had a call where we talked about the state of the business. We talked about what the team looks like and how to move on. You also have to be careful with private equity, and I see this a lot, where they try to bring external people into your business to kind of guide you and advise you that are not board members. And this is where you probably want to be careful, because many times they don't know your business as well as you do. But if they have expertise in a certain area of your market, you can grab that expertise from them without them suddenly telling you how to run your business. Because as a founder, that is just going to really be jarring to you mentally. And for me, thankfully, with my partners, whenever that came up, I was able to tell them, I don't need this person in my business. I'm happy to take this person's advice and talk to my team, and my team and I can create a plan of action. But this person doesn't really need to come tell my team what to do. We were able to do that because we had a healthy business. They could trust us that we were executing on the business. So those are some of the things you have to get ready for mentally. But you're all trying to get to the same destination, which is great value at the end of the day.